Real life, real people, real stories. It's time to acknowledge people in the community. Each week, come along and take a look into the lives of some extraordinary people. See how a story of a complete stranger can be so similar to your own.
Hi, I'm attorney Al Parisi. Real life, real people, real stories. Stories are funny because they actually have to be told or they die. Today, you will learn the very interesting story of Meeks. Meeks rose up from these city streets and became one of this state's greatest union organizers. You will learn that he rose up from a position where he wasn't sure who was on his side to protecting thousands of workers right here in this city of Rochester.
Well, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Great. Now let's tell these people out there, what's your full name?
Meeks.
Right. Now, let me ask you a couple questions. you were raised where? Here in Rochester?
Yes. Yeah, born and raised city of Rochester.
And what part of Rochester do you live in?
I lived on a lot of different sides of Rochester. Grew up over on the east side, Reed Park. Moved on up to Olean Projects, which was over on the west side Terrace, and eventually into the 19th Ward, where I reside now as a homeowner.
And how was it in terms of growing up? Did you go to public schools, or where did you go?
Yeah, I attended public schools growing up.
Okay. And which schools were they?
Wow. I just had this conversation. It's interesting. But elementary was 6 school, number 2 school, number 29 school, number 5 school, number 17 school.
And how about high school?
And middle school, Nathaniel Rochester, number 3 school.
Right.
And high school, 1 year at Edison Tech, and then I transferred to John Marshall High School.
And what would I have thought of you in high school? What kind of kid were you?
I was actually voted class clown and most likely to succeed.
Wow. So, and that's an interesting combination, right?
It is.
How were you able to get class clown and succeed all in the same sentence?
Because I always enjoyed, I always wanted to have fun. Right. And I was always just like a ball of energy. And I was also focused as far as knowing what the expectations were, as it related to school. So you could joke around, but a report card better appease mom. So
were you the kid, for instance, did you get grades in conduct back then?
No. We had different things where they recognize your character or things of that nature, but not necessarily grades on conduct.
And what was it about that set those expectations? When you said you always knew those expectations, what they were, what was it that set those expectations in your life?
Well, the expectations were my mom. She, would often tell me this is what I expect of you. So she set certain things in place. She always let me know also that she would not uphold me in my garbage. So in other words, if you get caught up in mess, she wouldn't uphold me in it. So she had a high expectation, and she let me know what it was. And there were also consequences for my actions.
And when you say consequences for your actions, what do you mean by that?
I mean different forms of punishment, whether it was you can't go and participate in sports, and also if it came down to it, we received spankings, you name it. There was consequences, and we knew what they were. So this action may warrant X, Y, Z. So she would often tell us also that everyone has to answer to someone. As it related to school, when we would have issues with teachers, it wasn't our place necessarily as children to fight back against the teacher. Come home, let me know what your concerns are, and I'll fight that fight for you.
Can you explain to me, how was it that you were able to determine which group of kids to hang out with? In other words, I see a lot of problems today with the popular kids all of a sudden hanging out with a group of kids where maybe they shouldn't be hanging out with. How did you navigate that?
I was often welcoming to most of my peers, and I was also recognized as a leader amongst my peers. So I would often, just different activities that I participated in, those were the folks who I would often be around. So if it was sports, I was also a member of a group called Members Against Teen Pregnancy. So there was a large group of us that hung out together. So we just, hung out. We tended to have things in common. After school, the goal was to get home, put our money together, buy a few snacks, and go on home.
And when you say that, though, I still don't. What I'm trying to get at is, right, there were a group of kids, say even in high school then, right, that were doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing, right? How was it that you were able to navigate that?
I just made the right decisions, I feel. Certain things didn't appeal to me. I remember when I turned 21 years of age, a lot of folks asked the question, hey, so, you're going to go out, you're going to drink, you're going to get drunk, have a good time? I'm like, that's not a good time to me. Me personally, I don't smoke, I don't drink. So, and I told them if I wanted to, I could have done that at the age of 13 when some of my peers were doing it in middle school. So it's just, making the right decision and trying to position yourself around people with like attainment, people who have goals, who want to persevere and do better.
And you went on to college where?
I originally went to Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a historical black college. Which fell under due to funding, but great university. For me, it really was a life-changing opportunity to go to a historical black college and learn so much about my history, which they just didn't give me in the public school system.
So in other words, what you learned in Rochester was far different from what you learned at that university, even about yourself and your own history?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the things I thank God for, Mom, like I had, she would go and buy books and say, hey, sit down, read this, or we would read together on our history. But if it was just simply based upon what we learned in the school district, our history started with slave ships coming to America, when our history is so much deeper and so much richer.
So where did that, I guess at the high school level, and then at the college level even more, you began to look inward?
Absolutely.
And that inward reflection, the part that I have a hard time with is this. In kids today, and a lot of young kids, it's the words deferred gratification. How were you able to come up with that and say, look, I may not have this today, but someday I'm going to have that. I'm going to own the house. I'm going to have my own car. I'm going to have those things. How were you able to put deferred gratification to work?
I had a blueprint. My mom, my hero, was my blueprint. When I was growing up, like I mentioned, the different schools I attended, some of those different schools were based upon struggles that we had at that time. Whether it was, moving from a house because it was not a good health environment, based upon issues with the house, slumlords, so that was an issue. But my mom continued to persevere. We lived in public housing, Olean projects at one point, and she continued to better herself. She went into working for the state at like a grade 7 and eventually made it to like a grade 16. And at that time, she continued to move forward, eventually purchasing a house in the 19th Ward. So I would say that my mom, being my hero, was my blueprint because she continued to persevere. And I didn't see her sway. She was focused. She said, okay, my goal is to buy a house. My goal is to buy a car. And whatever her goals were, she met those goals. And it wasn't a thing of taking to the streets. It was hard work and a commitment to family.
And how much of your success was trying to do right by Mom?
A lot of my success. Currently, I work as an administrative organizer with 1199 SEIU, which is a union. And my mom, she was a member of a union. She was a member of CSEA. And I would go to work with her at times. She would show me how to file things and, how to organize. So I learned a number of things from her. And she would always encourage me to do better and know that I can do better. And
today you represent workers.
Yes.
And what does it mean to you to represent workers?
It's to me, it's more rewarding than a paycheck. It's like when you have the ability, the God-given ability to go out and do research and to speak on individuals' behalf. Some of the members I represent may not have an 8th grade education. And at times, depending on what the circumstances, they may have to speak before a lawyer. And I'm there to assist them with those efforts. There's been individuals who have been wrongfully terminated from employment. You know, we go, we fight on their behalf and assure that they get their due. So it means a great deal. Sometimes we're representing our members. Other times we may be in Albany lobbying for money or different benefits or legislation. One of the issues we're having in a number of the facilities we represent is short staffing. You know, so it has an ill effect on the residents in those facilities as well as the employees. So those are the type of things that we're out there advocating on behalf of.
And if you were to give a message or send a message out there for kids today, the kid who might be the class clown or the kid who may be pushing it to be, quote, in the popular group. Like I said, the popular group sometimes is a dangerous table to sit at because you'll see what these kids are doing to be popular, right? If you see that kid today at the popular table and he knows those kids are, quote, going down a road where he should not be, what advice do you give that kid at that table?
I would tell that kid to look within himself and know that, that the sky's the limit. You know, not to be a follower. I know it's easier said than done. However, you have to look at what's going on around you. Ask yourself how you really feel about it deep down inside. You know, is it something positive? Is it something that you want to be a part of? And also think to the future. What are your goals? What do you want to have in the future? Is it hanging out? Getting involved in mischief, or do you want to excel and have great things? I often ask youth, you know, what exactly do you want to be in life? And they often say, well, I don't know. I never thought about it. And I would tell them, I'll ask the question further. So what do you like? I see you dress nice. You know, what kind of car do you picture yourself driving? And, you know, sometimes you get an answer such as the Mercedes-Benz, you know, the luxury vehicles. And it's like, well, you know, that type of car, even with A1 credit, you're going to pay about $500 or more a month for that vehicle. So if you factor that in and you want to have a nice house, these are some of the different careers you may want to think about. You know, so getting them to think to the future opposed to here and now.
Wow, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.